September 19, 1944. 5 in the morning. Arraucourt, France. The fog is so dense you can't see your own hand in front of your face. Inside a German Panther, the commander looks through the hatch and sees nothing. Just white. A wall of mist that swallows everything. But he knows they are there. The Americans. Somewhere in that fog. 75 meters in front of him, so close he could hit it with a rock, is a Sherman. Immobile. Silent. Seemingly abandoned or broken. The German commander looks at that dead tank and makes a decision. He ignores it. He moves on. Because a stationary Sherman is no threat to a 45-ton Panther with a 75mm cannon. What he doesn't know is that Sherman is perfectly functional. And that there are 4 others hidden in the fog. Waiting. Watching. With their cannons already aimed at the Panther's flanks. In the next 3 minutes, 5 German Panthers will be destroyed. And the crew who ignored that broken Sherman will never know what hit them. This is the story of the Battle of Arraucourt, where supposedly inferior American tanks destroyed a German armored force 3 times their size. But what makes this story extraordinary is not just the result, it's how it happened, and how one seemingly logical decision, ignoring a dead tank, cost the Germans everything. To understand this story, you need to understand something fundamental: the M4 Sherman should not win against a Panther. On paper, the confrontation doesn't even exist. It's a massacre waiting to happen. The German Panther weighs 45 tons. 80mm frontal armor that can deflect practically any Allied shell. A 75mm KWK-42 cannon with a muzzle velocity of 936 meters per second. That cannon can pierce the front of a Sherman at 2,000 meters. The Panther can destroy a Sherman before the American even sees the German. The M4 Sherman? 30 tons. 50mm frontal armor. A 75mm cannon with a muzzle velocity of only 620 meters per second. At 1,000 meters, the Sherman cannot penetrate a Panther's front. At any distance. On the open plains of France, where tanks can see each other for miles, this difference is fatal. There is one account from a Sherman commander that perfectly summarizes the terror. Our tank rounded the corner of a house and fired 3 shots into the front of a Panther. All 3 ricocheted. The Sherman then backed up behind the corner and was destroyed by a single shot that went through 2 sides of the house plus the tank. And there was something worse than the Panther. The Tiger. 56 tons of nearly impenetrable armor. One American commander summarized the doctrine: we needed 5 Shermans to take down 1 Tiger. And we lost 4 in the process. So when the Germans mounted a counteroffensive in September 1944 with 2 panzer brigades, the 111th and 113th, equipped mostly with Panthers and a few Tigers, the German high command was confident. Their goal was simple: recapture Luneville and destroy the American bridgehead over the Moselle River. They had 262 armored vehicles. 107 Panthers. Against them? The Combat Command A of the American 4th Armored Division. Commander, Colonel Bruce Clark. A man who was about to do something impossible. Because Clark had a problem. He was outnumbered 3 to 1. His tanks were inferior. But Clark had 2 things the Germans didn't have. First, he had sent reconnaissance patrols throughout the area. Second, he checked the weather forecast. And the forecast said, dense fog in the morning. Every day. Clark smiled. Because he had just figured out how to win an impossible war. September 18, 1944. The German offensive begins. The 111th Panzer Brigade attacks Luneville. The American response is devastating. The American forces destroy 24 German armored vehicles in intense fighting. But the German commander, General Hassel von Manteuffel, doesn't care. The real target is Arraucourt. On the night of September 18th to 19th, the German Panzer Brigades move. They are new units. Factory fresh Panthers. Young crews. But there is a problem. A problem no one in the German high command considered critical. The Panzer Brigades do not have adequate reconnaissance units. They will advance blindly. And when the sun begins to rise on September 19th, the fog arrives. It is not ordinary fog. It is a dense, white wall that reduces visibility to less than 75 meters. Inside the Panthers, the German crews can see nothing. The superior optics are useless. The 113th Panzer Brigade advances toward Arraucourt. 42 Panthers in the front. What they don't know is that Captain William Dwight, the American liaison officer, saw them, counted them, and has already reported to Colonel Clark. Clark acts instantly. He knows the terrain. and he already has Shermans positioned there, waiting. At 8 a.m., it happens. Two M4 Shermans are in an outpost position south of Leslie. And then, through the fog, only 75 meters away, the ghostly silhouette of a panther emerges. The Sherman commander doesn't even breathe, because he knows. At this distance, the panther's superior armor doesn't matter. He can hit the flank. The Sherman fires. Once. Twice. The panther explodes. Two more panthers emerge from the fog. Confused. They don't stand a chance. Within seconds, both are in flames. The remaining panthers spin desperately and retreat south. And that is just the beginning. Because Clark is not playing defense. He is hunting. While chaos unfolds to the south, something even more devastating is happening to the north. Company C, 37th Tank Battalion. Commander, Captain Kenneth Lamison. Lamison sees three panthers emerging from the fog. Three panthers destroyed in minutes. Lamison watches the remaining panthers retreat. He knows the terrain. There is a ridge near Bézange-la-Petite. Lamison sends a platoon of Shermans to that ridge. And they pass. Imagine the scene. You are Panther crew, retreating through the fog. Suddenly, from your flank comes a burst of fire. Four panthers instantly shredded. The surviving panther crews panic. They cannot locate the shooters. As they frantically search, the Shermans disappear, retreating over the reverse slope. Invisible, the remaining panthers stand still, and then the Shermans reappear. At the top of the ridge, four more panthers destroyed. In less than 15 minutes, Lamison's platoon destroyed 8 German panthers, without a single American loss. How? It wasn't tank superiority. It was intelligence. It was knowledge of the terrain. It was the fog turned into a weapon. And it was something else. The Sherman had an advantage no one talked about. Its turret traversed faster. In long-range combat, this didn't matter. But in the fog? At 75 meters? It was the difference between life and death. By noon on September 19th, the 113th Panzer Brigade was shattered. 11 Panthers eliminated. And then something worse happened for the Germans. The fog began to lift. When the fog finally disappeared around noon, the Germans realized their mistake, because they had forgotten something. Air superiority. Major Charles Bazooka Charlie Carpenter, observation pilot, flying a Piper L4 Cub, a Fabricant with two-seater. But Carpenter had mounted bazookas under his wings. When the sky cleared, Carpenter saw an entire company of Panthers. Carpenter Dove, firing his bazooka rockets at the Panthers. He was credited with the destruction of 2 Panthers. But Carpenter was just the beginning. When the sky fully cleared, the P-47 Thunderbolts of the 19th Tactical Air Command arrived. For the Panthers, the air attacks were devastating. They had nowhere to run. And Clark wasn't finished. Lieutenant Colonel Creighton Abrams led a task force to the north. When Company C, 37th Tank Battalion, reached the plateau, they were met by a German ambush. The first German shots destroyed 6 Shermans. But Abrams did not retreat. He maneuvered, brought in artillery, coordinated with the infantry, and systematically destroyed the German position. Because that was the fundamental difference. The Germans fought with tanks. The Americans fought with integrated systems. Tanks, infantry, artillery, air power, all coordinated. In the following days, September 20th to 25th, the Germans kept attacking. And every time, the same thing happened. The morning fog allowed American ambushes. When the sky cleared, the P-47s arrived. The threat was neutralized by the spirited fire of the 191st Field Artillery Battalion. 155 mm howitzers firing at ranges of just 200 meters. The concussive force alone can kill everyone inside. By September 29th, the Battle of Araucourt was practically over. Of the 262 armored machines the Germans brought to the battle, only 62 were still operational. 200 machines destroyed. In 11 days, Combat Commander lost 25 tanks. It was the largest tank battle on the Western Front up to that point. So how did it happen? How did inferior tanks destroy a superior armored force? The answer is not simple. Because here is the truth, the Sherman was not as bad as the legend says. And the Panther was not as good. Yes, the Panther had better armor. But it had problems. It was heavy, complex, hard to maintain. The Sherman? Simple, reliable. But there was something deeper happening at Araucourt. The Germans fought the battle they wanted to fight. Clark forced them to fight the battle he wanted to fight. Short-range ambushes in the fog where technical superiority didn't matter. Clark didn't win despite having inferior tanks. He won because he knew he had inferior tanks. He didn't try to fight like the Germans. He fought like Americans. Used the terrain. Used the fog. Used coordination. And the Germans? They made the fatal mistake of believing their own propaganda. Arrogance disguised as confidence. So let's go back to that moment. A Panther commander sees a Sherman at 75 meters, immobile, and he decides, ignore it. It's not worth the shot. How many times did that happen at our corps? We don't know. But we know this, every broken Sherman was a potential danger. Every abandoned position could be an ambush. And in the fog, where you can't see, every decision to ignore something could be fatal. The Americans understood something the Germans forgot. War is not about having the best weapon. It's about using what you have in the smartest way possible. Clark didn't have Panthers. So he created tactics where Panthers were disadvantaged. He didn't have range. So he fought at distances where range didn't matter. And here's the final irony, those destroyed Panthers were new machines. If they had fought on the Eastern Front, they would have been devastating. But in Lorraine, in the fog, they were hunted like rookies. Because war does not wait for you to fight on your ideal terms. It forces you to fight on the enemy's terms. And if you cannot adapt, you die. Our corps changed something fundamental in how the Allies viewed tank warfare. Before, there was fear. After our corps, there was understanding. Understanding that technical superiority does not guarantee victory. That tactics matter. General Patton visited our corps and agreed that they could resume the offensive because they had proven that Panthers could be defeated, that the German war machine was not invincible. There is a photograph of destroyed Panthers around our corps. 45-ton tanks that were supposed to be invincible. Decimated by Shermans that everyone said were inferior. And somewhere in that photograph is the real lesson. Don't fight the war your enemy wants. Fight the war you can win. Don't believe your own propaganda of invincibility. And never, ever, ignore a broken Sherman in the fog. Because you never know how many others are hidden around you. Waiting. Watching. With their cannons aimed at your flanks. September 19, 1944. The day supposedly inferior tanks proved that war is not about metal. It's about minds. It's about adaptation. It's about turning the fog from a problem into a weapon. And sometimes, the broken Sherman you ignore is the last mistake you make.